Yeah, so like Larry said, I'm Jeana Weiser. I'm with the National Trust for Historic Preservation, our special department there called Preservation Green Lab. And like I have an urban planning background, and most of the people at Preservation Green Lab do, so we like to look at a whole variety of things that kind of intersect at older buildings, particularly older buildings in these commercial districts, just like here in Enid. And so one of the things that we look at is energy efficiency and how to make these buildings more energy efficient, not just for the saving energy piece, but also for the saving money piece. So we think that that's a real crucial, just kind of foundational thing that we can contribute to a lot of these Main Street districts across the country. We also work with the National Main Street Center, who Larry works with as well, being the state coordinator for Main Street at the Oklahoma level. And so we are working in partnership on this America Saves project with the National Main Street Center. And that's why we're here in Enid today, specifically kind of looking at these Main Street districts, particularly because of the relationship aspect. That's a real important thing that we are kind of basing our whole program on, is this inherent trust-based relationship that a lot of Main Street managers have with their communities. And so we have that person here embedded in the community that can be our liaison and can really help drive the program locally with the business owners in the community who trust them. Real quick, let maybe Sara, this is Sara Stiltner, my partner here that works on America Saves as well. And like Larry said, she's in Seattle. And maybe if you just want to say a little bit of your background.
Oh, yes. And my background particularly is working with small businesses and energy efficiency with the city of Seattle and neighboring areas. So I'm really excited to be part of this program and to help get the benefits of energy efficiency and the savings to Main Streets all across the country and in Oklahoma.
Yeah. So I'm just going to flip through some slides here that we have to kind of give you a good overview of the program, as well as some of the background that led to the development of this program. If you have any questions along the way, definitely interrupt me. The presentation shouldn't take too long, and so if you either want to interrupt me with questions or wait till the end, happy to work through some of those questions that might come up. So America Saves, this is one of the projects at Preservation Green Lab, and this one is specifically funded by the Department of Energy. We did research leading up to getting this grant from the Department of Energy that kind of established us as, quote-unquote experts in the small commercial energy efficiency market and really understanding this type of building. And so the Department of Energy wanted to put some money towards understanding small commercial as it relates to energy efficiency. And so we're one of, I think, 6 teams across the country that are really working through this, this problem, really, where the energy efficiency existing programs that are out there are not, oftentimes reaching the Main Street level, the small commercial level. And so we want to address that gap and try to figure out, what is it that an energy efficiency program would require that would make it more likely that a small business would be able to participate and not really have to invest much time or money into participating, but be able to access those resources that are out there and hopefully encourage along the way some additional incentives and tools to be developed to support this specific market. And so this is a 3-year program. We're a little more than halfway through. And I just want to make sure to mention that this is a research and development grant. We did research leading up to this. We're continuing to do research. The further that we get into it, the more we're learning and the closer we get to kind of these nice aha moments about what is it that we need to include in a program like America Saves that will make it really accessible to communities like Main Streets. So the opportunity, we started focusing on the opportunity early on with our research because we felt like just, inherently or, to us, that this was an issue, this was something that should be addressed more in the small commercial sector, that there must be an opportunity for these small business owners to save some money each month by investing in energy efficiency. And so we produced this report here called Realizing the Energy Efficiency Potential of Small Buildings. And this report really looked at the entire country. We did a whole bunch of building surveys to really understand what these building types look like. Buildings that, just similar to this one, really, a lot of these small commercial downtown Main Street type buildings, they haven't really been studied too much at a national level. A lot of times when you've got data on buildings at a national level, it's really focused on big buildings or institutional type buildings, much bigger than a 50,000 square foot building like a lot of Main Street buildings are. So anyways, we put together this database and really kind of laid the groundwork for our understanding of small commercial buildings across the country in a variety of climate zones and regions. And so we were able to say, like, here are some typical building characteristics for, office buildings in the Southeast. They typically have awnings because, they want shade, and that actually influences the energy use of the building. And so we wanted to kind of understand what that looked like and where we were starting with these buildings, and then where we could identify the opportunities to save additional money. So the other thing that why this is so important is not just for the opportunity to save money, but because of the sheer number of commercial buildings in the country that are in this less than 50,000 square foot bubble. And so we've got actually 95% of the total number of commercial buildings in the country are considered small. And what we mean by small is under 50,000 square feet. The older and smaller portion of that is 40% of the 95%. And so that's a lot of buildings. And so when we think about like scalability of a program and the impact that we could have by focusing on this sector, even just the older and smaller, at 40% of 95% of the commercial buildings in the country, that's huge. And so that's really interesting to us. And it's not just the buildings, it's also the businesses. So one of the charts that appeared in our report, if you want to take a look at the full report, it's available on our website, Preservation Green Lab, National Trust for Historic Preservation. We can provide that link to you, or Larry can. But one of the things that we just want to highlight is the difference in small commercial versus big commercial and the impact that you actually see through energy savings. And this chart right here just basically tries to highlight and underline the fact that small businesses see more increased business profit from utility savings based on their investment versus large buildings. So the blue line is a large office building. The orange line is a Main Street restaurant. And so as you invest, or as you see increased energy savings, you actually see the profit just spike up in a way that the large office building does not. In terms of our America Saves work and our pilots that we're working with right now throughout the last year and a half, this is kind of where we're at right now. These are the different cities, communities that we're working with. Some are main streets, some are like eco districts or other business improvement districts, but they all look kind of generally the same. Some are more like small town, others are urban neighborhoods, but at the end of the day, they all kind of have the same general makeup. So just a quick highlight of several of our pilots, especially these are our real early adopters. The first one was Fond du Lac, Wisconsin. This is a Main Street. They have about 300 businesses in their Main Street district downtown. And this one, we're pretty far in. We've been working with them now for about 2 years. And I would say like one of the kind of indicators or the characteristics of why we've been successful there is we had real early involvement on behalf of Alliant Energy as well as Focus on Energy, which is the statewide energy efficiency program. They run the statewide energy efficiency program. So we were able to bring together, not just the Main Street manager with us to talk about like why this is important and why we want to help small businesses in her Main Street, but we were also able to bring the utility to the table as well as this energy efficiency statewide program that actually like implements a lot of the retrofits. And so we were able to coordinate with them. So for example, they did a day where the Focus on Energy came in and did an entire day of auditing. So they took our our analysis that I'll get to later and handed it over to Focus on Energy. They used that as kind of a baseline to help like give them preliminary information about the building, and then they did a free energy audit on top of that. And then it was like a combination of what the Focus on Energy was able to determine from being in the space to identify opportunities, along with what we were able to determine through our remote energy audit and the report that we provided to them. So it was a really interesting and successful day of free energy audits.
And 30 energy efficiency projects have come from that so far, and I think maybe more we haven't added up from last quarter.
Yeah, and there's been, people have been really happy. Some of the business owners have started saving quite a bit of money already. One of our urban neighborhoods is in Boston, Hyde Jackson Square. This is another really interesting one. We have a very motivated Main Street manager there who wants to use his neighborhood as a demonstration project to incentivize all of the other Main Street districts in Boston. I think there's about 20 more on top of his, and he wants to, really try to demonstrate that this can work in his neighborhood and then apply that, the lessons learned and everything, to the rest of the main streets in Boston. And then hopefully through that participation at kind of an entire city level, influence some of the existing incentive programs that are out there for the small commercial market. So this is a really interesting one for us as well, because it's got the urban perspective, and then it's also a whole bunch of main streets in one city. Middlesboro, Kentucky is another main street that we're working with in southeastern Kentucky. It's definitely a fairly small town, but they've got about 200 businesses in their downtown that they were very successful in reaching almost 100% of their businesses. So what the Main Street manager there did was he actually hired, was able to get a project manager on board to help him implement this survey that is the first step for working through the America Saves program. And that person managed the survey, went door to door to all of the businesses. We did a kickoff thing kind of similar to this at the very beginning, and so we gave an opportunity for everyone in the community to kind of learn about America Saves and at least become familiar with it, so when they had someone knocking on their door later, they were familiar. And so anyways, they were able to collect data on nearly all of their businesses in the town, which is really exciting. And that's ultimately what we would love to see, because not only is this a kind of like building by building analysis to figure out, what this building could do or what this building could do, it's also a like district-wide approach to energy efficiency, and especially with small commercial, bundling 200 businesses in a town and using all of that information and potential energy savings to leverage utilities and energy efficiency programs, that's when it starts to make a difference, and you can kind of compete with, like a big building that they might be more commonly used to working with. One of our other pilots is in Dayton, Ohio. Once again, this is like, 300 plus businesses. So there's quite a few, and they've got several neighborhoods. There are no main streets in Dayton at this point, but they have a lot of adjacent neighborhoods to downtown with a lot of small commercial buildings. And the guy that we're working with there, not a Main Street manager, but he does real estate, market rate real estate development for a nonprofit real estate developer working in downtown Dayton, trying to encourage the revitalization of downtown Dayton to get more people living in downtown. And so he and their organization has a vested interest in improving Dayton in general. And so he sees the opportunity to do some energy efficiency retrofits and getting people saving money, letting businesses save money. He sees that as totally in line with what he's trying to do at a bigger scale and revitalizing Dayton. Another really interesting thing about Dayton is they kind of have a whole bunch of green and sustainability initiatives going on. They have a regional sustainability group that works with the University of Dayton and their engineering department. And so we've been able to pull in some of the engineering students to kind of play around with the data, create a database, and they're sort of applying some new and interesting ways of looking at the data and testing the data locally in addition to our national approach. So as an overall, this is just kind of like something that we wanted to put together to really demonstrate, you know, what does a successful America Saves community look like? And so America Saves communities, what we've found so far working with our about 10 to 12 pilot communities, that this is really the winning combination. So you have a community energy advocate. This could be a Main Street manager, someone who's going to be the advocate, the liaison, is going to be able to, you know, maybe not be the expert, but they're going to be able to know who to direct people to and just kind of take overall responsibility for the implementation of this program locally. They will work with the National Main Street Center. Lindsay Wallace is the person that we work with at the National Main Street Center. She was planning on being here. She's going to be the local kind of Oklahoma liaison for America Saves. She unfortunately couldn't come this week, but that the community energy advocate will be working pretty closely with her, with Lindsay. And then the other thing is data. We need data. In order for us to understand these buildings and identify the opportunities for energy savings, we have to have data. And so that takes the form of energy use data as well as physical building attribute data. Like, you know, what do the buildings look like? Do they have several businesses in the building? What are the square footages of each of those spaces? It's fairly basic information, but we do, for some of the more like advanced questions, we do have a guide, and I have a lot of materials that everybody can look at afterwards to kind of help, you know, figure out how this might actually look here or in one of your communities. Utility connection and relationship. That's really big, like I mentioned before, just having that, just being in communication, like, you know, giving updates about here's what we're doing, here's the community we're working with, here's how it's going, you know, and also the other thing is that we need to have a really good understanding about what are the existing energy efficiency programs and incentives that are out there. And so, you know, what are the programs that these businesses could be tapping into, but they're not. And so helping to direct them towards the utilities and their existing programs is another part of this program. Volunteers. That's huge, and I know all of you in Main Street understand that volunteers help you get a lot of stuff done, and so America Saves is no different.
So Jeana, it's really interesting that we have all of those people in this room today.
Yes, that's brilliant. Yes, yep. So a quick how it works then. So the first thing is data collection. And so we need to collect the data, the energy use data, and the physical building attribute data. Then that data gets delivered to us, and we share that with our project partner who does the remote analysis. And so that's the audit step 2 part. So we analyze the data. And through that analyzing, we're able to isolate the areas, the general areas where it's going to make the most sense for the business owner to invest in energy efficiency retrofits. And then we're also able to provide them with a number of other kind of recommendations about what they can do, ranging from very simple and free to a little bit more investment, especially if they're planning on doing, you know, a renovation or something. This provides a guide for them to sort of calculate that into an upcoming renovation. Step 3 is the feedback piece. So that's our 2-page report that we hand back to the business owner to inform them about, you know, what it is that we learned by looking at their data. Step 4 is the retrofit piece. So this is actually starting to go down the path of implementation and identifying, you know, kind of the biggest wins. So the other great thing about looking at a community, like a community aggregation of buildings, is that especially for the Main Street manager and working with us, we can sort of prioritize. We can look at their entire community and say, okay, well, these 3 or 4 buildings are the biggest energy hogs in your community. So maybe we can kind of work with those building owners specifically to help them kind of bring them up to the level that everybody else is at. And so it gives you this like really nice kind of framework for looking at the community as a whole and the buildings within the community to you know, pick and choose who you want to kind of like push and maybe provide more information to. And then at the retrofit step, that includes a lot of things. That includes hopefully an in-person audit, like I mentioned with the Fond du Lac, to sort of supplement and complement the report that we do. And so it's just a matter of kind of organizing and facilitating all of the local people on the ground that can really support the retrofit phase. We also have project partners on our team that, from a national level, that have connections, have connections regionally throughout the country that we can sort of tap to help with that piece as well. So these are just a couple of screenshots of our materials. We've spent, in this second year of America Saves, we've spent some time trying to really further develop our education and outreach materials, not just for the community energy advocate, but also for the businesses, just to be able to kind of, you know, summarize this program and what it is in a very, you know, simple and concise way. And so we have a number of those materials that are available to, you know, both the community energy advocate, the volunteer, and the business owner. One of them includes a survey guide right here that really steps you through the data collection piece and, you know, it explains exactly what it is that we need. This one, right, this right here is an example of the 2-page report that goes back to the business owner. So I think this is really cool. It kind of summarizes the existing energy use, and then it isolates, you know, potential savings. So in a percentage, in a dollar amount, and also, excuse me, on the back, it provides a whole host of additional information about local current incentives, as well as that kind of range of low cost or free to more investment, and it's tailored to their business type, the use in the building, which is really great. We also have a website, americasavesenergy.org, that has copies of all of these materials, as well as additional information tailored to the small commercial market. And then here's just a slide. I'm not going to read all of these bullets, but this is just really trying to highlight the connection between America Saves and utilities, and just once again, you know, why it's so valuable to have utilities a part of this conversation, and then also helping to highlight the benefits to utilities, which I'm sure you all understand. And a piece of the data collection, like I said, is the energy use. It's the last 12 months worth of energy use. And in order for us to access that, we have to have the ratepayer, usually the business owner or the building owner, sign this form. It's an authorization form. I have a copy of it if you want to take a look. But this is how we access the data. And so that's very important. Okay, I think that's the end of the presentation. Here's the contact information, myself, Sarah, Lindsay, like I mentioned, who's with the National Main Street Center, and she'll be working very closely with any of the communities that will be implementing America Saves here in Oklahoma. Thank you. I'm happy to take questions.